What is going on, everybody? My name is Andrew Montana, welcoming you to season 19 of HTF's main show. Now, in case you didn't hear about it, the Lakers beat the Timberwolves. That's it. Now, for today's slate, we're going to be talking about Formula One as we recap the United States Grand Prix and look forward to the Mexico Grand Prix. Then we're going to talk about the MLB American and National League Championship recap as the World Series goes into full swing, tomorrow night. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about another NBA issue that's really been just grinding my gears, so to speak. And lastly, it is homecoming week at UCF. Bam! So make sure you guys are taking advantage of campus's activities, including concert night tonight featuring Annalie Chapa and Mariah the Scientist, as well as Spirit Splash tomorrow. Now, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break, so don't go anywhere because main show starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Alrighty then, we are back with some familiar faces as we talk about Formula One. To my right-hand side, Frankie Noble. My left-hand side, Edgar Rodriguez. Frankie, I'll start with you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Talk about F1 today.
Doing great. Excited to talk about it for the second time this week. Super fun.
Beautiful.
Super fun.
Edgar, yourself, same question?
I'm feeling fast for F1, Andrew.
Like turbo?
I'm ready. That's right.
Turbo little Snell dude?
DRS. You want to explain DRS?
DRS.
I was like, this is familiar, but I don't remember where it's from.
Super fast.
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so like the track reduction system could be used any race. Back flap opens up, you go fast.
There you go.
Awesome. Now, as for this segment, what we're actually supposed to talk about, we're going to give a quick recap of the United States Grand Prix, and then we're going to pick a racer that we're excited to see in Mexico, and then we're going to predict the winner for that race. So, Frankie, I know you really want to read these USA Grand Prix
I want
polls.
to so bad.
Exactly. Why don't you go ahead and do that for us?
So, obviously, Charles Leclerc took the win. Also on the podium in second was Carlos Sainz, and Max Verstappen took third. And then P4, Lando Norris, and P5, Oscar Piastri. So a 1-2 Ferrari, a Red Bull, and a 4-5 McLaren.
There you go.
Super easy, super fun. Very exciting race.
Super interesting. Yes, and then Edgar, do you have any kind of pullaways from that race in Texas?
So if you watch the race, Circuit of the Americas is a really unique track. Turn 1 is all the way like a huge incline, and then it's a very, acute turn 1, right? And so Lando and Verstappen ran each other wide. Leclerc saw the space, and he just went for it, and he didn't look back after that. Ferrari got the 1-2, and I think that's a real confidence boost for the Scuderia. Leclerc, third win of the season. He won very emotional races in Monaco, breaking the curse finally, and also in Monza at home for Ferrari. So look, he won the third. I don't see why not for Mexico, but we'll get to that in a second.
We will get to that. Actually, right now, because we're going to be looking at the Mexico Grand Prix predictions that we're going to be putting out for you guys. In the mountains of Mexico. Well, I don't really know if it's in the mountains, but it's mountains relative to what we're dealing with here in Orlando. But over 2 kilometers above sea level, 71 laps around a 4.3 kilometer track, and then 17 turns, 2 straightaways. I love to see how this race is going to pan out.
Where you can use DRS in those 2 straightaways.
Do you want to explain it for those who
don't know?
Yeah,
so like the track reduction system. No. Nope. Go back.
Take 2. But yeah, I'll get my pick out of the way so we can let the actual experts talk towards the end. I'm going to be taking Oscar Piastri because, currently he's sitting at 4th overall with 247 points, 28 points behind 3rd place. I don't see him necessarily taking over that 3rd place spot anytime soon, but I am super excited to see how he performs with this altitude. In the races that he's won in Baku City and in Hungary, the tracks are very close, if not below sea level. So to see it, the juxtaposition to put that journalism degree into fruition, I would love to see how he performs in higher altitudes. But yeah, he's put up solid performances in his last 5 races, and yeah, I'm just interested to see how he kind of carries it over. I've also broken down this F1 season into kind of blocks of 8 races, as I'm sure you guys might have seen in like previous shows of mine. But in his first 8 races, he's sorry, let me find the stat. He's averaging 8.5 points. in his second block of 8 races, he's averaging 15.75.
Is this like math that you just make up?
This
like,
isn't
from
math.
nowhere?
This is literally averages.
Okay.
It's plus and divide by
The last
X.
one you were like, he's gonna have
Okay, no, that
483 points.
That's time I was that's how I was
Okay.
checking. But okay, in this final block of 8 races, we're only 3 races into it. He's got the 4th best with an average of 16.7. Again, he's 4th best. He's currently 4th overall. I would like to see that bump up a little bit, but again, I'm just excited to see where that pans out. Frankie, I'll pitch it over to you next.
Okay.
To talk about Lando Norris.
Yes, I have the other McLaren driver,
Yes.
Lando Norris. I kind of just chose him just for fun because I think he can win this race. He's won 3 races this season. It's his only race wins so far. He's looked pretty strong. He's just over 50 points under Max Verstappen in the driver's standings. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to close that gap. I'd like to see it personally. This could definitely help him if he takes that P1 position. I think his 5-second penalty last race is definitely going to push him to want to win this race this time. He hasn't won at Mexico, which we were just talking about before this. The only winners that are currently on the grid so far have been Max and Lewis. So it could be Max. I did change my choice last night. I was going to say Max. And then
That's the boring option.
It's the boring
That's the
option.
boring
We can
option.
all say Max is going to win. I would say he might. Like, I know I'm not supposed to be talking about Max right now. He could definitely win this.
I mean, Andrew Gregg's not here, so.
I know, Andrew
Wow.
Gregg, I'll
Yeah,
speak for you.
there
Max
you go.
Verstappen could win this too, just because he's due for like a win, not a sprint race win, just a win. So
Right.
we'll see what happens there. But ultimately, I'm going to take Lando Norris just because he is hungry. We've seen it in past races. He's so hungry for all these wins. I think he'll take Mexico because why not?
Interesting. And then, last but not least, Edgar, talk about Leclerc for us.
Yeah, so like I said, he won in Austin. Why not again? Why not 2 on the bounce, right? Look, like you said, Frankie, Max has won the last 3 in Mexico City. It's usually a good hunting ground for Red Bull, but I see Leclerc with, much more pace than the Red Bull or the McLaren at the moment. As you see, he's 3rd, so I'm going with just above Piastri, Andrew, so don't take that too personally.
Oh, well, I'm not super invested, don't worry.
He's 22 points ahead of Norris right now, and I agree, Frank. I would love to see Norris and Verstappen, level on points, or maybe 1, 2, 3 points in Abu Dhabi. But I think Leclerc continues. He has 3 wins on the season so far, 2 poles, 10 podiums. He's been the #1 driver, I feel like, for Ferrari, especially when Sainz is going to be out of there for next season. It's kind of been an awkward dynamic so far, but Leclerc stepped up. He's been the best Ferrari driver of the season, and I think he's going to take it in Mexico City.
Interesting. Now, Frankie, I want to toss this over to you because what?
I don't know.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. You had some extra notes, I believe, for this race or
Did
any
I?
up and coming races. Yes. It was either the song or something else. I don't know. But
No, I think Edgar wanted to sing the song. I
Edgar,
did
you
have an
wanna sing the
actual
song?
important question, though.
Okay.
yes.
Because you did mention with like the Lando and Max
Yes.
rivalry here. Do you think we're going to see a repeat of like 2021 Abu Dhabi?
Oh.
For context, we had a really, really, really close battle between Lewis
we did.
Hamilton and Max Verstappen back in 2021
Yes,
in
we
Abu
did.
Dhabi. Very controversial. Max ended up winning. I'm curious if either of you think we can have a repeat of that. I don't know if Andrew has too much to add to that,
so-
but
I'm gonna be like, it was like what he said.
yeah.
That'll be my thing. So
Edgar?
Look, 2021, I think, is one of those like once in 50 year type moments, right? It was incredible. I don't think we'll be at that level. Of course, Lewis and Max were level on points headed into that last race in 2021. So like I think it'll be close. There might be 5 points, as I said, maybe around that range if Lando continues to perform the way he has been. But I think we'll fall just short of the drama we saw in 2021, although I would love to see it.
I think
That
it'd
would
be super
incredible.
fun.
I
I think
would
it'd be
love to
super
see
fun
it.
for the sport.
I think so.
I'm sure you would love to
I would
see
love
it.
to see it. But anyway, do we have any kind of final predictions as we're entering the final 5 races of the Formula One season, which has been spectacular? Like, again, I'm sure you guys have noticed, but I'm not super tapped in. But I can attest to the fact that, I mean, you said it, Edgar said it, Andrew Gregg has said it, shout out. This has been a phenomenal F1 season. Do you guys have any final predictions for who might pull away with the victory at the end? Of course, Max with the current first place finish.
It's
Where are you
gonna be
going for,
Max.
Frankie?
It's gonna be Max
I
that
think
wins.
so. I think so.
Some standouts that I think could be fun. I really want to see George Russell do a little bit better. He
Why not?
obviously has had some success this season. I want to see a little bit more. I love George Russell. I have a soft spot for him. He hasn't looked bad. I mean, he's 7th in driver standings right now, right under the other Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton. So I mean, maybe he'll win Mexico. Why don't we just say everyone's going to win Mexico?
Why not?
But I
I'll win it.
going into the last few races of the season, I really want to see George Russell produce a little bit more just because he isn't a fast car. Car's fine. And just see what he and Lewis Hamilton can do with it being Lewis Hamilton's last year at Mercedes.
Speaking about Lewis, he had a horrible weekend.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Austin, like awful. He qualified
to
19th.
scroll.
He qualified 19th. He crashed out in the first lap.
Yeah.
It was bad. So he probably won't win it
Nope.
in Mexico. But like, I just want to see Lando take it all the way to the end. Like we were talking about in 2021. It was insane. That drama, we'll probably never see it again. But I think if he gets just close enough, like, you know, with the possibility of winning the championship in Abu Dhabi, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So I would love to see Norris just stay on the front foot and keep pushing Max to the very end.
Absolutely. I have no brains in this, but my heart leans to Carlos Sainz, fellow Spanish speaker, mi gente latina. Hispana, mi gente hispana. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to sing a song. Maybe we'll get that done on socials, right?
Maybe.
Sure. I'm not going to be singing.
Okay, never mind. Anyway,
Frankie will be singing.
yes, I think we're all going to vouch for that. But anyway, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere, though, because we're going to be talking about the World Series. We'll be right back. With that in mind, I mentioned it previously, but I'm saying that Jacksonville is going to make the playoffs. One of the most wealthy quarterbacks in the NFL, and that basically means you're in okay, let's win now alongside Trevor Lawrence. But I think it could make it to the playoffs.
And so I have the Rams winning this one, 27-23. Yeah, I think the Lions are just going to be a little too comfortable. Week 1, they're hosting it, you know, a lot of energy.
Why do you think the Sun will outperform Tyler's Lynx?
So I believe, you know, you got the home field advantage, you're feeling good, and I think they're really an evened out like match.
So for my MVP, and I'm just gonna say it, Defensive Player of the Year pick, I have Asia Wilson. You know, and I think she's gonna come away with the MVP, potentially Defensive Player of the Year too.
Okay, I was going to say, is your selection for MVP or Depoy or MVP and Depoy?
Both.
Both.
I'm saying both.
And our native Minnesota Lynx fan has made it to the table.
I want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask like how you felt about the DPOY, but sure, okay. Anyway, we're going to be talking about some MLB World Series. I've got Tyler with me, as always, Augie Aronson. Before we get into MLB, though, we were just talking about this a little bit before the show because basketball is the best sport in the world. How do you feel about your Timberwolves?
We're fine. We started 0-1 last year, and we made the Western Conference Finals.
Okay, I'm fine in the West. Okay, and then
No, please, spare me.
Miami Heat.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. We lost by 20 and a home opener last night.
Well, just say Jimmy's hurt.
Yeah,
Jimmy was hurt.
Yeah, I have him on
He pretty much,
fantasy, so
he
we're
might
all hurting.
as well be. I think he had 3 points on 12% shooting. So yeah.
That's some him numbers. Anyway, we're gonna be looking. We're gonna be picking some teams to talk about, including their journey to the championship series in the MLB, and then we're gonna give some bold takes regarding the World Series and maybe even the previous series if you guys are down for that. But let's get it all started off with Augie's team, gonna be the Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, so the Cleveland Guardians have kind of went under the radar a little bit throughout all of this, as they're not from New York or LA like the other teams, but so they won the the AL Central who had 3 playoff teams, so it was a good division, and then the Chicago White Sox, but whatever. Yes, but so they actually played their division foes, the Detroit Tigers, in the first round. They beat them. Then they played the probably the best team in baseball, I think, right now, the New York Yankees.
Oh,
And the strength of this
hot takes coming early. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The strength of this Guardians team all season was their pitching. And their pitching was throwing batting practice. There's no other way to hit it. Their best pitcher was Emmanuel Clase. And just to put this bluntly, he gave up more home runs in one series than he did all season. He had a .6 ERA all season. He had a 9 ERA in the playoffs in 2 series. He had a 15 ERA just against the Yankees. So it was not pretty. And their whole bullpen kind of struggled. And they had statistically probably one of the greatest bullpens of all time. And for them, and their top leverage guys with Clase and Hunter Gaddis, they just struggled. And it just wasn't pretty. I mean, you had the Soto homer in Game 5, was it? Yeah, Game 5.
That clinched the series.
Yeah, I mean, he was just stalking Gaddis. It was like a lion about to pounce. I mean, he was just waiting for that fastball, and he gave it to him, and he hit it out of the park. So it was great hitting, but I mean, their bullpen was just terrible, and yeah, you can't win games if you can't close out games.
And speaking of hopefully not closing out games, Tyler, why don't you talk to us about the New York Yankees? Again, I'm rooting for their downfall. That's why I say that.
Yes, the New York Yankees are finally back in the postseason after well over a decade. 2009 was the last time they were in the World Series. I was 7 years old.
That was just after the Bush administration.
That was right after Obama just became president. So that was a hot minute ago.
Do you know his last name though?
No.
Obama?
Yeah.
I don't know Obama's last name.
I don't think anyone does.
But the biggest thing I would say that stood out from this Yankees, and especially in this series against the Cleveland Guardians, their hitting has been outstanding, led, of course, by their big three of Stanton, Judge, and Juan Soto. Teams batting over 200 as a team. They have 13 home runs. Only behind in this postseason their opponents in the World Series, the LA Dodgers. But the big player I want to highlight, Giancarlo Stanton. He was outstanding in this series against the Cleveland Guardians. 4 home runs in this series alone, 1 in Game 5, and then, of course, Game 5 was ended by a 3-run homer from Juan Soto, who it's looking like he'll be staying as a Yankee given the success that they've been having this season. So Yankees fans, I wouldn't be too worried about Soto leaving.
The blank check.
Especially with if a World Series win. Oh yeah, he's getting a blank. He's getting Shohei money.
Keys
probably.
to the city.
Let's not
check.
get too ahead of ourselves now.
But yeah, no, and then obviously now you can't talk about the Yankees without mentioning Garrett Cole. He's still been outstanding as a pitcher. Carlos Rodon. Luke Weaver has been a great reliever for them in this postseason.
Kind of a surprise too.
Yes, he has the lowest ERA in terms of double-digit innings. He has a 2.6 ERA, 4 saves in this postseason. But yeah, the Yankees, they are just. It's been so long, I feel like, since we've seen a Yankees team that's this good of a well-oiled machine this deep in the postseason, and I think it's deserved that they're now back in the World Series.
Similar to F1, I'm not super tapped into the MLB, but yeah, I've never seen the Yankees make a deep playoff run. It's kind of like the Cowboys.
They were the Cowboys of baseball for the longest time.
It's a fair
Until
comparison.
now,
It's a
they're
fair
finally
comparison.
back.
Yeah, it's like that whole dynamic of being a Cowboys fan, a Duke basketball, UConn fan, Yankees fan, and a Lakers fan. I can attest to only one of those. But speaking of West
Chiefs
Coast
fan
teams,
now?
I'm not a Chiefs fan. Lamar Jackson for MVP. Speaking of LA teams, I'm going to be looking at the Dodgers, the other team taking on the World Series this month, and I can't get enough of this team, to be honest with you. I mean, debatably, maybe not even so, best player in baseball, Shohei Ohtani. Just
Ever or
to
just right
kick
now?
things off. For right now, we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, I mean, this series against the Mets, it was star-studded. We got, I believe, 2 performances where we dropped double digits on y'all.
You don't have to brag. You don't have to brag.
Two games with a shutout. So there's the pitching as well,
Don't
on
have
top
to
of just
brag.
the regular season, the
just say you
postseason
won.
dominance. I mean, we won. Like I'll leave it
Mets
bluntly.
did have one good game, right?
They did have one good. They had. I mean, it was
cruised in
4-2. So
We
would
had
say
2 good games. We
Yeah.
had 2 good
Or
games.
two, yes.
Yeah. You want me to wipe your tears, or you got that?
I can do it myself. I'm a big boy.
It's a grimace tear now, huh? But yeah, I'm super excited to see the Dodgers take on the Yankees. But Augie, you're talking about the Cleveland Guardians to our Dodgers and Yankees. It's okay. It's okay. There's always next year. But your team, I guess, is kind of outside looking in at this point. At least the one that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the Mets or the the Guardians that you just spoke of. What are your kind of predictions for the 2 teams that we spoke about?
Well, so I'm going to start with the Mets. It's going to be interesting for the Mets because they got a lot of free agents. Pete Alonso, Luis Severino, J.D. Martinez, Harrison Bader. They got a lot of guys that had some good seasons and also went cold. The key's got to be bring back Pete Alonso, though. If they can bring back Pete and bring back Severino, because Severino had a great year, I think they could make another run. They got to start better than they did last year, or this year. But I think they could make the playoffs again easily. But they got to bring back some of these key free agents. They got too many free agents to where if they don't bring some of these guys back, then they'll be pretty bad. Like especially Pete. I mean, the guy's played like 6 seasons in New York already, and he's third in franchise in home runs. He almost got 300. So like, you got to bring that guy back. And it's going to cost you a lot of money, but Steve Cohen's not afraid to spend the money. So
yeah.
And for Cleveland, they're a great team. They're going to get some pitchers back from some injuries. Like their best pitcher, their Cy Young winning pitcher a couple years ago.
Shane Bieber.
Yeah, Shane Bieber. Yeah. He was out. He had Tommy John, I think, beginning of the year. So they'll get some pitchers back, but I don't think there's much they got to do. I mean, I know the bullpen struggled, but you don't touch that bullpen. That bullpen was so good. And, I mean, you just got to get a little bit more from your hitters, I guess. I mean, let these guys, like, just get more used to it. Because they were a young team kind of in the lineup besides, like, Jose Ramirez. So let some of these guys get a little more experience, let them get a little bit more comfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they'll win the division again next year.
And then before we get into our hot takes kind of the World Series, do you have any predictions? Actually, what are your predictions for the World Series? Just overarching.
As much as this kills me to say, and as you've already alluded to, as I'm a Mets fan, I think it's time to bring it back to the Bronx. I just think it's happening. Like, and we saw in this Cleveland series, if Giancarlo Stanton is going to hit the way Giancarlo Stanton hit, it makes it impossible to pitch around Judge and Soto. And you can't face those guys. We saw what happens when you face those guys. So if Stanton's going to hit the way Stanton hit, there's no way I don't think there's a way that they lose. Because you can't pitch around 3 guys. So if he can hit like that and Rizzo can hit, because I know Rizzo came back and get some out of Chisholm and all those guys, I think they'll win. And I honestly think they will win.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, that could have been a hot take if you ask me. But we're going to get into our quick little hot takes. We'll give a short little spiel. Tyler, do you have any takes about the World Series?
I would say I think that I think the biggest thing is that Shohei, this is his biggest, he's finally here at the grandest stage of them all for the World Series. I think he'll come out of the gate struggling a bit here in Game 1 on Friday. On bets, I did pick the Dodgers to win the World Series, Shohei to be my World Series MVP. But I think he might come out the gate struggling against a Yankees team that is just like Augie alluded to. They're just firing on all cylinders. Absolutely. So I think we'll see a slow start, not just maybe from Shohei, but the Dodgers as a whole in Game 1.
I actually do like that take. I do like that because it's not going to be guns blazing the whole time. There's going to be some adjustment periods, which honestly you could say this, and I hate to be super biased, but you could say the same thing on the contrary to the Yankees going up against the Dodgers picking.
Yeah, but the Yankees have had no real hiccups. Like, yeah, they lost to Kansas City and they dropped the game to Cleveland. But the Cleveland game, that was like a miracle shot from Noel.
Big Christmas.
The home run, Big
what
Christmas.
A nickname.
Yeah.
Big Christmas.
Meanwhile, the Dodgers, we saw them in that second loss against the Mets. They got exposed. It was bad.
Their bullpen got exposed.
Yeah.
So that worries me about the Dodgers. The Mets, obviously, they hit so much better against bullpens than they did starting, but they tore apart that bullpen.
And then lastly, Augie, before we wrap up the segment, you had one really hot take about said Shohei Ohtani. Within a sentence, what is it?
I think he's already the greatest baseball player of all time. I don't, especially when he gets back to pitching, I think there's no debate he's already top 10. And I think you could easily argue that he's already top 3 and the greatest baseball player of all time. I mean, the guy's one of the best pitchers when he plays, and he's by far the best hitter. So I think it's fair enough, and we've seen enough out of him, like 7-8 years, to where it's easy to say he's the best of all time.
Interesting. I'm going to agree just because I have such a small sample size. I'm of the belief that Bob Cousy could not guard me, so I'm going to say the same thing about Babe Ruth, and I can't even play the game of baseball. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Did Barry Bonds die?
I don't know these
Hey, I love Barry Bonds.
I'll get into
the
it
next
someday.
guy, but I mean, you got the whole steroids argument. I know he won a bunch before he took all the steroids and everything, but you still got that argument. And I mean, he also doesn't pitch.
Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up the segment. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break where I'm going to be talking about another little detail of the NBA that's just really kind of getting on my nerves at this point. We'll be right back. Hello, Hitting the Field family. My name is Andrew Montana, host of Season 19 of The Main Show. And on behalf of HTF, we hope you're enjoying today's content. But I'm here to tell you about everything else we have to offer here at the network. Mondays at noon, HTF Bets goes live with 3 of the best on-air faces we have in the program. Andrew Gregg's personality, Tyler Brownrick's sports expertise, and Nick Cohen's versatility make this show a fan favorite, but also a warm light to guide you through the harsh world that is the sports betting industry. On Tuesdays, Frankie Noble hosts a brand new show called Girls Got Game, blending women in sports, the biggest sports news stories, and creative segments that make for a fun and engaging show. Next up, we've got The Combine, an easygoing, conversational, and podcast-style show dropping on Wednesdays with Ty Patton as your host. No changes there. But a big change for The Combine is the set. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to The Combine from our brand new podcast studio. We've got the lights, we've got the cameras, all for Ty Patton to bring the action, and we hope you're just as excited as we are for this amazing opportunity. Much great content from The Combine this semester, as always. Then tune in Thursdays at noon for our second live show, The Main Show, hosted by, well, yours truly. Here we'll cover any sport, any topic, any story, no matter how obscure, be it basketball, football, hockey, soccer, UFC, MMA, cycling, even baseball. But be sure to tune in throughout the semester for our special shows, including drafts, debates, and much, much more. Lastly, Nighttime is aired on Fridays, where Patrick Previty and Matthew Bracker talk about UCF and college sports. From in-depth looks at campus's top storylines to collegiate records being broken nationwide, let Nighttime be your primary college sports resource. And outside of our 5-show roster, be sure to tune into our other content, such as the Studio Days vlog run by Vlog King Nick Cohen, breaking news graphics on our Instagram page, and much more. As well, make sure you're subscribed to Hitting the Field Network on YouTube, as well as following us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. But as for me, I've been Andrew Montana. Thank you so much for watching, and back to your regularly scheduled programming. Ooh, man, the NBA is oh so very back. Bam. Ooh, oops. Nevertheless, okay, so if you guys don't know me by now, I'm one of the biggest NBA fans you might ever meet. The sad part about it, though, is that at least in week 1, I'm looking across the league, just grand scope, and I see a lot of stars missing on these rosters. We've got Paul George, Chris Middleton, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid. They are some of the biggest names missing in the first week of basketball. And the issue in question, load management. It's been an issue for a while, and it's really just applicable by either teams or by players. Now, before I address load management as a current issue, I do need to establish, at least for you guys as the audience, that it has been a systematic tendency that's been around for years. Now, if we can throw up the graphic real quick, we've got some examples of load management issues going on across the NBA. First off, we've got Andrew Wiggins, who was not allowed to play for the Paris Olympics this summer because the Golden State Warriors wanted to increase his trade value and prevent any injury. Okay, cool. We look back in hindsight, at least, a couple months away, a couple months removed, he didn't get traded. He's still very much on the roster, so now he didn't get to play for his Canadian national team for nothing. Cool. Okay. Kawhi Leonard. His history is, at this point, riddled with load management issues in San Antonio, Toronto, and now in Los Angeles. LeBron James, at the beginning of last season, if you have watched the first episode, if I'm not mistaken, of Starting Five on Netflix, he talks about his minutes restriction, courtesy of Darvin Ham. Shout out him. Not really. He's not the happiest with, or he wasn't the happiest with that minutes restriction, and since then it's been more or less lifted. Now he's playing quality minutes as the star Lakers player. Joel Embiid, same thing. He's got a knee injury at the moment where he's going to be missing the first week of NBA basketball, including tip-off, which happened yesterday for the 76ers. But in fact, this injury is that suspect that Adam Silver and the NBA are conducting an investigation to figure out its actual legitimacy. And last but not least, in 2012, this one was kind of just a joke one, but Tim Duncan was given a DNP by Greg Popovich because he was old. Cool. But anyway, regarding Kawhi Leonard, he was one of San Antonio's greatest players, and his load management issues then, it wasn't as important to the team because they lost in 2017, but he was also surrounded by an absolute star-studded lineup of players, both on the team and in the coaching staff. But last season, specifically Joel Embiid load managed, and the 76ers still haven't made it past the second round in the process era. So I want to read a couple of quotes real quick from an article called NBA Sends Teams the Results Found in Load Management Study, written by Sean Powell in January of this season. It goes like this. The NBA sent data from an exhaustive study to its teams this week that showed no link between load-managed players and a decreased risk of injury. That's the first quote. Second one, between the 1990s to today, the average number of games missed per season by those defined as star players, which, by the way, does include Chris Middleton, rose considerably. Then in the 1990s, it was 10.6 games. In the 2020s, now 23.9 games, end quote. Ridiculous. It's over double. Now, last year, to establish this little load management issue, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, he spoke about the implementation of the player participation policy. And if you don't know what that means, it's essentially the new 65-game rule where NBA players are not eligible for all NBA teams or for the MVP award if they miss more than 17 games of the 82-game regular season. Now, let's take a quick look at that Adam Silver clip to see exactly what he's talking about, and I'll break it down a little bit for you guys afterwards.
The the correlation, putting aside causation, isn't there even with players who participate in summer competitions like World Cups and Olympics. They are not more likely to get injured in that season. We don't see any statistical data suggesting that players increase their likelihood of getting injured as they go further along in the season, or even in back-to-backs, which may surprise people. We're trying to deal with some of the most egregious examples where multiple star players, for example, healthy, all out on the same night, healthy. And I think we're letting down the fans, we're letting down our partners by doing that.
Players who participated in summer competitions like World Cups and Olympics, they are not likely to get more injured. Adam Silver. So what's going on? We got a handful of players, of star players, who are taking time out because they want to, escape injury, escape the potential of injury, when it's clearly statistically showing that it doesn't work. Load management doesn't work. The only example of it succeeding is Kawhi Leonard in 2019 for the Toronto Raptors, when he load managed to prepare his body, prepare himself for the postseason, and won himself the championship. That is the only exception in the history of the NBA, especially now in the 2020s when it's this big of an issue. And at the end of the day, when it comes to load management, it's really just all about balancing the happiness of fans and players, because you don't want either side to, too much, too little. But at the moment, I personally believe that it's not fair to the fans when the exact same players are missing extra games, not even games, but extra games on top of what they're asked to miss because of their doctors, because of their medical staff, for the sake of succeeding in the postseason, just to not succeed in the postseason. Again, Kawhi Leonard is the only exception to this in 2019. I just personally think that it is a dumb issue, and the wrong people are being held accountable, and the wrong people are suffering the consequences. That's my personal thing. I hope it gets cleared up soon, and I personally believe that the 65-game rule, again, it's got two sides of the coin to it, but I believe it's a step in the right direction in terms of making sure the fans that pay a lot of money to see their favorite player, Kawhi and Embiid, they're actually there to make the money's worth. But regardless of all this, tune in next week. Tune in next week for some more main show, as it is officially and literally going to be spooky season, bro. We've got a lot of fun segments that are already being cooked up, so be sure to tune in. But as for today, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time that we've got. Thank you so much for watching, and until next week, until Halloween, go Knights and charge on.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.